Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is TJ Murphy, and welcome to another episode of Adventurous Entrepreneurs. My guests today are Isaiah Lopez and Vince Bicicchi, the founders of a revolutionary travel safety app called Ozzi. In response to the Paris attack in November 2015, CEO Isaiah Lopez built his first commercial travel safety algorithm, enabling traveling employees and executives at Fortune 500 companies to access immediate support if they were affected by a global safety incident. Since then, more than 50 million users across 200 global markets speaking 9 different languages have used this app to stay safer while traveling. Just a few of the golden takeaways Isaiah and Vince share in this episode are the importance of unrelenting patience, tips for starting a company with a co-founder, how to deal with rejection and succeed as a startup, and how to travel safely with a new app on your phone. So without further ado, this is me, Isaiah, and Vince talking about business, travel, and living a well-rounded life. Welcome to the Adventurous Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, TJ Murphy. Since quitting my corporate 9-to-5 and starting a business while backpacking through Asia back in early 2017, I've had the privilege of learning from some incredibly adventurous entrepreneurs. Through these conversations and my own journey, I've learned that much like in life, entrepreneurship is an adventure. On this podcast, I explore the journeys of top-performing leaders in their fields. These wide-ranging conversations include tactical business advice, how I built this insights, lessons in leadership, life hacks, travel stories, favorite hobbies, and insights into living a purposeful and joy-filled life. Adventures await us, so let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to Adventurous Entrepreneurs.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
awesome. Thanks, TJ.
Yeah, man, it's nice to see you guys. Thanks for being here.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk about your journey as startup founders, the amazing technology that you guys have developed together to help people travel more safely around the world, and any other exciting rabbit holes this conversation takes us down. So let's start with a bit of background on your guys' journey. How did you guys meet, and what was the aha moment that led you to start Ozo Development?
So I think that Vince does tell this story pretty well. It was a introduction from a mutual friend, and Vince is he delivers tough news sometimes to some folks. And anyway, let me let Vince tell it.
Isaiah's no good at stories, so I'll take this one.
Power team already. I like the dynamic.
So no, my background is in wealth advisory, finance. Anyway, a lot of times some of my clients would come to me and it'd be a startup situation. And so this is kind of how I kind of initially cut my teeth in startups, is that I just analyzed businesses for other people. So clients would come and say, hey, somebody they know needs some capital, right? And they have a startup, or maybe somebody close to them, or a client's kid or somebody, but they'd say, hey, Vince, can you go check it out for me? Is this a good move? And so I'd inevitably have to meet with somebody on their behalf and say, hey, like, what do you got going on? And 9 out of 10 times, or maybe even greater than that, it's a cool idea. It's a really cool concept, but it's not a business, right? It's like a half-baked concept that's clever. And so a lot of times I had to be the person that'd be like, hey, this is a great idea. I don't think it's matured yet. It's not really a business. So I think we're gonna have to take a pass. And so I'd have to be like, I was like the hatchet man for like a long time.
I have to call somebody's baby like ugly sometimes.
Yeah, and you have to do it in a really nice way. So I got really good at calling babies ugly in a way. I guess never really thought about it that way. But anyway, so this other time is like 2018. A client of mine came to me and was like, hey, I've got this smart friend that's doing a smart thing, and I think I might be contributing here some capital, and I might join the board, and blah 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 blah. So I was like, oh, here we go again. So I call this Isaiah guy and I say, hey, let's meet for lunch. So we get together for lunch, and I go into it just knowing I'm going to destroy this guy's hopes and dreams, potentially, of at least in this small microcosm of financing. And he starts talking, and all of a sudden I'm like leaning in for the first time ever. I'm like, wait, go on. Like, what else do you have? And so this turned into, we ended up, the half-hour meeting ended up being several hours long, and then said, hey, I actually think I can introduce you to a bunch of folks. Let's actually, and I think I can help move the needle on this. Let's talk some more. So we ended up locking ourselves in a room on a whiteboard for hours for several days. And then that progressed into finding some capital, and then finding a little bit of our niche, and then growing. And then we ended up kind of getting founder married shortly after that. But it started out like, this is not going to be a good thing. And then it was a cool surprise. So anyway, that's
we went on several
how it
dates
started.
before we got founder married, for sure.
Good. I think that's important. You don't want to just jump right into it. But I'm curious, Isaiah, because you were in the financial world too, if I'm not mistaken.
So I was in the
Adjacent.
Yeah, a different financial world. But what made you shift from the career you had to ultimately coming up with this idea and ultimately meeting with Vince over here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think that is, I didn't expect to be developing safety applications. I was director of global data operations for American Express back in 2015, and my job was super simple. I just had to get data, financial data, from point A to point B, and as long as that was going okay, everything was fine. And then November 13th, 2015 happened. And on that day, there was a distributed terrorist attack in Paris, France. There were 7 different sites that were attacked. Hundreds of people injured. Almost 200 people were killed. And I wanted to do something. And but what could I do? I'm 2,000 miles away in Phoenix. This is in Paris. But what I knew that I had access to is I knew that I had access to where everybody was swiping their American Express card. So I quickly wrote an algorithm that identified those who were in the areas of the attacks at the time of them taking place. And we reached out to them proactively to get them like medical assistance or transportation assistance or psychological help even, because it was a traumatic event. And that turned into a real-time web app that was released to 200 global markets and translated to 9 different languages. And we actually served 50 million people through this application that we built. And then now it's a part of the American Express Expert Care program, where they can offer this type of service as well if you have a American Express Platinum card. But in doing that, I knew that there was a bigger opportunity to help more people, and that this travel safety stuff shouldn't just be with those who can have that platinum card or have the black card. And so it was a pretty big risk, but I decided that I was going to set out and do it on my own. I had built I transitioned from kind of like a technical operator to a product developer at American Express, and learned Agile and Scrum and all this stuff that you need for true product development at the highest levels. And I'm just so thankful for that, because it's basically empowered every step of the way. That American Express experience is empowered every step of the way to being the startup founders that I am today, and what we've been able to accomplish.
It's an incredible story. So that's a great push into what you guys are focused on today. Tell me a little bit about the Ozzi app and what you guys are focusing on here in March of 2023.
Yeah. Well, we are, I think, to let you know where we're at now, you should know where we're coming from, right? Yeah. So when we started this thing on our own in 2018, we still didn't really have, we just had a vision of a concept, but we didn't really know what was our go-to-market strategy, who was our first target segment. That stuff wasn't on the forefront yet, because we just we're so passionate about developing this tool that everybody could use to travel safely, and we all want to be safe wherever we go. So we going through some plans, meeting with some vendors and stuff like that in and out of state. I was in Washington, D.C. At the end of 2018, And over a bad sandwich, I was introduced to a contact at a U.S. intelligence agency. It's called the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. And they said, hey, we have a bunch of military and diplomatic families that are traveling around the world. Could you help them? And so we spent a couple months and we figured out how we could build a product that would serve these families moving around the world. Because there's hundreds of thousands of, like young, fresh out of high school dudes and women that are going into situations that are unknown and unfamiliar, and sometimes they're unprepared. And then, when you have young families in the mix as well and kids, the things that we take for granted on a daily basis, like just getting our kids to school or going to the grocery store, can look a lot different when you are overseas in a new place. So they wanted us to help them, and we set out to develop a mobile first experience that would empower these families to serve the country and keep us safe, from a national security perspective. And so we went through about 12 months of Department of Defense and National Security Agency vetting. They looked at our backgrounds, our taxes, our code, and we finally got approved. It took about 12 months, but we got approved, and we launched our app on March 11th, 2020, 2 days before basically nobody was allowed to travel.
Yeah.
And
gosh,
It was a great time. It was a great time.
Talk about timing.
Yeah. It was it disappointing? No doubt, no doubt. But the thing is that we had overcome a hurdle in terms of a go-to-market and customer issue that a lot of early stage businesses don't have the opportunity to ever overcome, right? And that's finding something that's going to buy your product.
Yeah.
And we were so fortunate to have made this introduction, and it wasn't just an opportunity of we're going to buy a certain block, or we're going to test it out. We got in on this unbelievable small business program that was stood up in 2016 that basically allowed an indefinite quantity of software licenses to be sold to anybody that had a national security clearance card. So we basically had access to Uncle Sam's credit card. We just had to figure out what was our go-to-market, right? And how are we going to build the network and distribution and all this stuff. And Vince and I are not military folks at all. We both have kids. I've got 3, he's got 4. Mine are older, his are younger. We're just family guys, and we want our kids and our families to stay safe. And when it came to the military, we just were like, what do we do? And so we knew we wanted to embrace this challenge, and we did. And you'd asked just a little bit ago about have we ever traveled together? And we did, through trying to execute this go-to-market, going to different bases and talking, going to military conferences and just meeting people that could use our product. It was just a great opportunity. And I know I'm being a little long-winded here in terms of this story to get to where we're at today. But it's so important, because the opportunities that we had while we were focused on that government market were incredible. I mean, we earned 5 different letters of support from congressmen or senators or captains, and different innovation groups. And we got to participate in national innovation contests and things like that. It was just an amazing experience that we got exposed to. And it kind of culminated in 21 with the Afghanistan evacuation. And during that time, we knew that we had a product that was delivering, real-time updates around safety situations around the world. And we wanted to know if there was any way that we could help, Congress or anybody else that was going through this evacuation at the time, because there's a lot of people trying to get out, as you could probably recall. Yeah. And this
is our core. This is also a core segment. right? So like Jason Bourne has the best information and intel in the world, right? He doesn't need our help from the private sector. But the hundreds of thousands of other folks, think of the State Department or anywhere else that's traveling on behalf of the government, the information supply chain is very, very discombobulated. Like it's just not efficient. And you think it is. And so that's like the market we were serving, like the non-mission people traveling on behalf of the government. And this was a case where the information supply chain broke down at its worst case scenario at like the worst time.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
It absolutely was the worst time. And fortunately, because of the relationships that we built to empower this application, that those relationships have teams that were extracting people from Afghanistan behind, the airport gates and making sure that people were getting in. And the questions that we were getting from Congress were, who was in control of the checkpoints? Which parts of the city, could people move around? And we worked with Senator Tillis's office. He posed the question to us within 30 minutes. We were able to reach out to those teams that were on the ground and get a response to him that unfortunately the Taliban was in control of the checkpoints that they were looking for, but we were still able to deliver that information in a timely manner that was effective for those people that were trying to get out. And we loved the opportunity to, even at the smallest of scales, even if it was just one person, to make a real difference when it comes to the services that we are providing. And that's what brings us to now and our capability of serving the public, which is we have taken this military spec tool and we have modified it for an everyday traveler. So no matter where you go, what neighborhood you're in, what city you visit, or what landmark you want to see on your bucket list, we can help you do that confidently and safely anywhere in the world.
It's powerful stuff. And one thing I'm curious about, you talk about relationships, and clearly you guys have had success as founders and you've created a successful partnership together. A little bit of serendipity with the bad sandwich that led to the partnership with the military.
That was an interesting phone call, by the way, when he's like, hey, how should we work with the DOD? And we're like, I don't even know what that means, but yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah. So, I mean, talk about a real high level partnership. I'm curious, what do you guys think are the most important elements of a successful partnership? And maybe Vince, give Isaiah time to breathe.
I think just transparency, honesty, just like getting it out there, because like it's real easy to breed, it's just a lot. Everything's a lot of work at the beginning. It's still a lot of work. Like there's just
the work never ends, really.
Yeah, and so it's just really easy to like be focused on what you're doing, and then just getting things out there. If you're feeling a certain way, or your strategy starts like building in a direction, like you set out to go somewhere, but the market shifts it. And there's sometimes where you disagree. We have disagreements, but I think what our superpower, kind of like what we're good at, is just getting the disagreement out immediately.
Yeah.
Of like, even right now we'll get into it later, but how we're doing spring break offerings and things, like we were battling about it yesterday, and like what we each believed we should be doing. But we're good at getting it out there, saying our piece, pragmatically kind of thinking about it and moving on, and then not letting it affect the next decision, because we know we have 10 more in, right around the corner. So I think that I think it's cliche. I mean, it's like any relationship, but it's like transparency, honesty, and just communicating that back and forth. And if you can do that, you can get by the hurdles, because it's easy to communicate during good times, but the bad times are where it's really, really, really crucial.
And so you guys have, built partnerships along the way. I'm sure you're eyeing even more as time goes on. How do you approach building partnerships? Do you have a system or philosophy or strategies that you use when you're looking to approach the right people and make those connections?
Values, Vince and I are both pretty value driven in terms of our alignment. And I think that that's probably the the thing that keeps us on the straight and narrow path in terms of our relationship is the values that we share. And I think that like all relationships, you kiss some frogs and you learn what a frog looks like before you do that. And
we did not know what a frog looked like early.
And you align your values and you ask thoughtful questions, and you become okay with having to go fishing again, or having to go, looking for that new relationship. Because I think that especially in the early days of like raising capital, it's really difficult to find partners that align to vision. We're creating a product category that does not exist at scale today.
Mhm.
And so finding investors that truly have vision and seeing, indicators in the market with us, and they're willing to be in the trenches with us and figure problems out. I think that is just, we did have to find our way into that. Because, when you are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and you haven't had a lot of the rejection as an early founder quite yet, like there's like life stress, and there's like life failures, but then there's entrepreneurial, rejections that I feel just cut so much more deeply
rock you to the
sometimes,
core.
because you invest so much of your life into this thing, and you're like, just tell me my baby looks cute, you know what I mean? And
It's at
By
least
the way,
you have
being
to
on
earn
the
it.
other side of that equation
Yeah.
versus me being the one that has to go in and say, your baby doesn't look so good. Like now we're like, wait, what's wrong with my baby? Like, we love this baby. Like this is and it's so tough because you have to weigh between like what, when you're starting and you're going, like you're also dealing with their opinions and experiences, and some of them are extremely relevant, but some of them are not. And it's really hard to decipher between the two and what advice you're taking and what advice you're saying. I appreciate that, but we're going to go our own way. And you get better at that over time because you get more confident in your gut and your decisions. And it's based on a combination of data and just gut, right? And in the beginning, you have no idea. Like everybody says something, they say counter to what you just like thought the strategy was. You're like, oh, what are we gonna do? Like what?
Yeah.
And but you kind of get seasoned. I mean, it's just like anything else in life. You start out super green and then you figure it out.
Yeah. So with the perspective that you now have, Vince, from being on both sides, do you have any advice that you would give to somebody in terms of how to deal with that rejection as a startup founder, which will inevitably come?
I think so. Two things from the investment side. The idea, I was always looking for the business concept to be really buttoned up, right? And that was unfair of me that early. Like, so like what I should have been looking for was, this is a concept that could go, it's well thought out, the market sizing's correct, product market fit is there or very close to being there.
Mm-hmm.
But like the rest of it can be sorted out. And what you should be diving in on is like just believing the founder, like believing the guy, like you're betting on the guy or the gal. I mean, that's who you're betting on. And so it's more so like a combination of those things, but the priority is the founder. Like that's who you're investing in. And then, but from the other side, how to deal with the rejection, it's the Hollywood story is rare, right? Like you read on these things, but you always hear of the one that, they had the idea, they met the VC, they blew up, they're a unicorn right away. But that's such a low percentage,
fraction of a percent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the odds of you're just going to have meetings upon meetings and re-examine and re-explain yourself to people. And the objection there is just like, if you go into it knowing that it's a little bit of a numbers game, that's one thing, but also going into it with like the values that Isaiah is mentioning. Like when we're looking for an investment partner, we're not only looking for cash, like that's important. Capital is important. It's fueling the business, but it's also like what their life experience and their network is also providing and what they can help with, and like how much hand holding or how much investment are they personally going to make. And those are all different. There's not, the value of a dollar is very different when it comes in there. So initially when we were getting rejected by some folks, like we were just looking for dollars, and then we'd initially would fall apart right after that. We were like, I can't believe it. This is terrible. We can't figure it out. But once we put it through a lens of like, well, that guy wasn't even right, or that investor wasn't even right for us. Now that we know more about them, like all of a sudden the rejection's not so difficult to deal with.
But you learn from every single rejection too, right?
Yeah,
you
take the feedback.
Yeah, I mean, we had we had an investment conversation just last week or the week before, where I mean, we were pretty hot, feeling pretty good about it, and he ended up saying no. And at the end of that whole, like, multiple days of meetings and coffees and stuff like that, I still think that interaction with that investor moved the needle for us in thinking about our business at scale, like the path to scale, versus just solving, a short-term, cash, fundraising need, or, thinking about the next fundraising round. Like, that investor really got us thinking about more than just, the capital conversation. And, we would not have been in that position had we not, been willing to learn and take feedback and grow. I think it's really easy to be disappointed when you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And you want, like, we were there for, were we disappointed in the end that that didn't work out from a capital standpoint? Yes. But we started going into all these conversations knowing that we don't know what their situation is. We don't know what their capital liquidity is, what their investors are expecting, where they're at on their year. We don't know. And so we've taken it as, every time we have like a serious conversation this way, we take it as an opportunity to like re-examine the business from like an objective standpoint. And so, like, what was funny is, Isaiah, like, were we disappointed? Yes. But we got off the call with the no. And I remember calling Isaiah and be like, I feel more energized than ever after that,
go.
because like we thought about this in a way that we hadn't, and we uncovered like a couple different paths to success that we didn't even see or think about prior to this exercise. So, like, I mean, getting back to it, it's hard to answer the question, how do you deal with the rejection? It's like, just know that it's gonna be there. By the way, my brother's in LA. He's actor, editor. He's been kind of a mentor of mine with like rejection, because when he moved out there, he's like, dude, everybody says no to everything.
You gotta learn how to take it.
He's like, in the beginning, like, you want to go home and just like go into the fetal position and cry about it. But then after a while, you're like, this guy, the person that said no to you doesn't have any malice towards you. It just didn't work out in their situation. But if you learn something, you move forward from it, you're going to be fine. So you just kind of go into it knowing that, there's always low probability of success here, but we're confident in our value proposition where we're going. And we're also confident that we can find the right partner, because we already have several times. So that's how we kind of get past it.
Yeah. So as you're on this path to scale and seeking new funding opportunities, what is your long-term vision for the company, and how do you see yourselves achieving that together? And maybe point that one to Isaiah.
So I think we think about that a lot, and the conversations that we have with investors and customers and all those things. When you're early stage, you get pulled in so many different directions, and there are so many shiny red balls all the time bouncing.
So many shiny
everywhere.
red balls. So many shiny.
And
I don't know which ones to juggle.
It's hard to know what path to go down. But I think that what we are a safety company that is looking to shift everybody's experience that they have when in motion, when moving around the world. It was kind of funny when Vince mentioned those early days of locking ourselves in a whiteboard room. We literally drew Maslow's hierarchy of needs on the whiteboard, and safety is number 2, right? It's on the path to self-actualization. And what we want to give people confidence in that self-discovery process. And we think that we can do that by building a safety application that not only helps people, like our safety experience that we have today on a daily basis. Like if something happens to us, we call 911, right? We call somebody for help. But that's after the fact, right? Ozzi is, what if the Ozzi, we pose the question of what if you can avoid those things from ever happening in the first place? And so we are building we have built an information service that can help people on a global scale stay safer anywhere they go, so they can avoid needing to call 911. But within the safety ecosystem in general, we see lots of advancements, right? Wi-Fi is going to be a thing. Like everywhere you go, there's going to be Wi-Fi. We've started to see satellite modem integration with both iOS and Android devices, meaning that we're now using space, machines to communicate with each other. And the advances of, augmented reality and, large language models and everything that we see from, an emerging tech ecosystem, there are a lot of ways to embed safety as a service into our daily lives that just empowers the experience. And I think that if we can do that integration with our daily lives, I think that we will have been successful.
That gave me just a thought, like, would a successful outcome for you guys someday be having your technology just be an out of the box feature in our cars, in iPhones, in all devices?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's a critical need for anybody that has a map solution to have, safety on the map. Like just creating a safety API layer that exists for, businesses to take the slice of information that's most relevant to them, right? And we think that we can do that effectively, but because we're building a product category, we have to start somewhere. And where we have found our message resonating the most is with women who travel. In the United States, 80% of the travel decisions across the country are made by women. 75% of women have experienced some kind of a threatening situation in their lives, as opposed to 50% of men. And if we can help these women who are taking their own journeys of self-discovery and in their own personal, growth paths in life, that's a good place to start, to then branch out to these other big opportunities to create those things. But it's tough creating a product category. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So a little bit of a rewind back to something you mentioned, Vince. You mentioned you guys have found pretty effective way of going about disagreements and conflict within your partnership. How do you handle those conflicts and disagreements with your business partner, and what methods have you guys used to resolve those situations throughout your career together?
I don't know. We basically just let it fly. Like we just kind of, it's total open, honest. I mean, it's like, every once in a while you sling a grenade and then the other guy throws one right back, and then you just go at it. But we finish it. It's kind of like that never go to bed angry situation, where stuff pops up, and then we just solve it. Like I mean, I think of being completely honest here. Like I don't think there's been ever a case where it's been like a multi-day situation. Like I think we handle it pretty quick, and I think that's probably the key. Is like, there's a disagreement, let's figure it out, let's move forward, and let's go. Because there's too much going on to like let one thing bog you down. Like, and we both understand that, I think, and we know that not every in knowing that not every decision is going to be perfect, no matter what. Like we are you become really comfortable as a startup founder that you getting back to that gut, like you a lot of times you're trying to make as much information, as many of your decisions based on like data and evidence as you can. But when you're building your pool or your body of evidence and your body of data from the beginning, sample size is very small. So you're kind of flying by the seat of the pants. So like when disagreements come up on direction or something, based on this very small sample size, it's really easy then to sit back and think about it and be like, okay, make your points, I'll make mine. Okay, those are fair, let's go. And we haven't had a situation where we've really had a long-term stalemate by any sense. I mean, not that, knock on wood, I guess it
Knock on wood, that's
it
great.
could happen,
Yeah.
but it's really about just like getting it, just literally just putting it out. Like there's nothing, the no hold back, brutal honesty, I guess, is the key for us.
It's the scientific
And it might
method.
not work in the right, yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I mean, that's the way I view it. I mean, it is, this startup thing is testing hypothesis after hypothesis. And like, it is,
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
It's throwing stuff against the wall. And the fact that I can sometimes hit Vince when I'm throwing it at the wall is great, because we can then like, piece apart the problem, and then we can work together to find a solution. And if we didn't have the ability to challenge each other as co-founders, I really don't know where we would be, because nobody needs a yes person. And I know that I have, things that I'm good at, and I know there's things that I'm not good at. And those things that I'm not good at, Vince compliments me pretty well in those areas. And based on his experience and, his background, he's able to, communicate and we are able to communicate in ways that are just more complementary, even when there is a disagreement. And Vince is a funny guy. I think that humor has a lot to do with like the way that we worked through things. Like we're just able to just, add in a little flavor of laughter, and it really relieves the stress and the tension I mean, stress and tension is just a constant when you are an entrepreneur, no doubt.
Yeah. And I also think like going through it, like I have a lot of confidence in myself. I think Isaiah has a lot of confidence in himself, but like, I don't know how a solo founder does it. Like that's like the superhero in my opinion, because if you can do it by yourself without gut checking and dealing, like just arguing through stuff or getting second opinions on, like you can have a good advisory team, you can have a lot of people, but until they're like elbow deep, like they don't have the buy. Like I don't know how, like I think it's really helpful having these arguments, because you can get through stuff. Like if you were solo and you're making decisions, you're throwing against the wall. Like every idea you have is a good one at first, because you have nobody to tell you it's a bad one.
Yeah. That segues well into another rabbit hole of curiosity that I have. So as a partnership, and for anybody that's thinking about starting a company with a partner, handing out equity to investors, how have you guys, and how do you plan on dividing equity and ownership in the company? And what factors do you think should be taken into consideration when making those big decisions?
That is a good question. I think that was like one of our first like things that we wrestled with. And we didn't really know how to wrestle with it. I think that what we did to determine where our distribution was going to be was just in the roles and accountability, and who was going to be doing what. And we came to a conclusion within a couple months. And I mean, that was really it. And then in terms of like the rest of the equity scenario, Vince has a ton of background with, fundraising rounds and, finance. And I had 100% confidence in him to set up the, initial terms that we had created for our investors, and the set aside that we have for employees, and, some of the advisor shares that we, have given out to board advisors, things like that. So for me, the how was realizing that I went to Vince as an expert, and I had to trust Vince as an expert to give this perspective and advice. And I had to take a back seat. And when I did that, I think that it just helped our relationship a lot.
Do you have anything to add to that, Vince?
Yeah, no, from the founding standpoint, I think it just needs to be an honest conversation about who's handling what you're doing, and where you're at. Moving forward from that point, then it becomes about pricing rounds, and it's a lot of math and modeling and the story. Actually, what's really interesting there when we're pricing rounds, especially in the beginning, is it's all fake. It's all pretend.
Yeah.
No matter you
all
meet
speculation in the beginning,
and it's all hockey stick growth. It's you talk to in the begining, though, like what we found very quickly, and what I saw when I was on the other side of it, was that I knew it was BS. Like, everything you're saying is BS because you're not selling in the market yet. You got this concept, you have this really cool whatever, but like, I needed to see your line of thinking. So then it gets back to the founder, right? Like, do you actually understand where you're going and how you're going to get there? And is your line of thinking plausible to the numbers that you're presenting? And so like that story, like when you're pricing around, then it's about your line of thinking of which milestones you need to hit. What money do you need to hit these milestones that are going to generate this next thing? It's a very linear concept. And then when we're hiring forward, it's also very linear, but like we came to the conclusion right away. We want to hire awesome people. And if you're going to hire awesome people, they need to feel like they're valued and they're going to be rewarded. And so we have probably an asymmetrically large set aside for employees, but we did that very purposefully because we wanted, the initial guys and gals that are jumping in with us, like, they deserve, some of the upside because they're helping us get there.
Yeah, I love that. And you guys are clearly passionate about social impact. That's the crux of what you guys are doing here and making a positive difference in the world. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are just starting out, especially those who are working on creating a product or a service that'll help promote social good?
That's a big question.
It is a big question. Yeah.
World peace. Just kidding.
I think so. I think the honest answer is relentless patience.
Yeah.
And that is patience with yourself. That is patience with your loved ones. It is asking for patience. It is that you just don't know where your entrepreneurial journey is going to take you, no matter what path you decide to go down. And giving yourself the grace to make mistakes, give yourself the grace to learn and to grow and to ask for forgiveness. I think those are the most important things that an early stage founder can do. I think the next thing is just build a strong network, like a local community. The Arizona community is just brilliant.
We were, and speaking of that, like we were aggressively founder dating like a C-level guy early, and he got into it, and we specifically, Isaiah wouldn't compromise on some of like the direction values, like what we're trying to do, like, and we could have monetized earlier, but the guy referred to Isaiah as a social justice warrior. Like, he was like, you're like, he just refused. Like, it was almost like, because you want to create something that's a little bit bigger, and we might walk away for some early profit in the early days. Like, Isaiah was like chastised because of it. And we walked away from that, and I backed him 100% because that's what we signed up for. Like we do firmly believe that we're passionate for traveling. We have families. We're very confident that we've all been in hairy situations. I know that I'm not Jason Bourne. Like I'm not, I don't have a special set of skills where I can like ninja my way out of it. Like, so, we want to just like, everybody deserves to keep safe, but we also want like, our app wasn't to instill fear in anybody either. Like it wasn't like to do like fear mongering. It was empower people to have their experience. Like, right now the status quo is ignorance. Like you kind of just like, it's not going to happen to me, even though the State Department's website might be saying something weird in some part of the world. You still go, and it's not going to happen to me. And that's how people are, right? And then you travel a bunch, and then you have all this experience, but like the acute situations that pop up, your travel experience doesn't help you with that. And so what we wanted to make sure of, though, is like, we're out there saying, two things. One, you're going to have your experience. We'll do the worrying for you. We'll be like the quiet, sentinel in your pocket or whatever. That we will tell you when to worry, but we're not going to chirp at you and ruin your experience. Like we will tell you when it's time to worry and that you need to take action. And that was really cool. And then that built into our initial people that, our initial customers are on the younger side. We're a mobile first app, specifically, younger female travelers have like really been a boon to our business and have taken advantage of it. But like, what's interesting is like my parents are baby boomers, right? And this boomer generation that's retiring, it's just like, think of like the generations, it's like garden hose of generations. The boomers, this giant bubble that's like coming down. And like my parents, and they're all retiring, right? They all started retiring. So like my parents are, they're not retired yet, but they talk about going places a lot, but they also watch the news all the time. We live in Chicago. My parents are still in Chicago, suburb of Chicago, but they go downtown all the time, like get haircuts, do whatever. And like they'll see something and they'll be like, oh man, I would never go to Mexico because I saw this thing on 2020 that told me this thing about somebody bad. And what's funny is like, I will pull up our app, which does all these safety and security ratings of every city on the planet, right? And I'll be like, this area that you're talking about is actually safer than Chicago. That you exactly. Go to all the time. Like that's not a reason to not do something. So like we have this like romantic idea too down the road, is like we're aggressively going after our current customer base, but wouldn't it be cool if the secondary wave could be like the boomers, where we can help empower like a generation of folks that have worked their whole lives really hard, that saved a lot of money, that get off the couch and go experience stuff and do it before it's too late. And I think that would be awesome. Like
I love that.
Really, really
I love
cool.
that so much, because my parents are similar in a lot of ways to what you described. Watch a lot of news, want to travel, have the freedom now to travel, both financially,
have the money, have the freedom,
retired, but there's some fear there. And my wife and I are big travelers. We spent 14 months traveling through Asia, and every time I talk to my parents, they're like, oh, where are you? Oh, is it safe there? And I'd have to explain things like, Mom, we were living in downtown Oakland. Like I'd hear gunshots every night. Where I'm at now, sleeping in this hut on the beach is 10 times safer than where we were before. So it's all about perspective, and having something that can empower you with that peace of mind is so important. So respect to what you guys are doing. And as we kind of segue to wrap up here, one thing I always like to talk about is the fact that one of the biggest hurdles that entrepreneurs face at one time or another is living a well-rounded life and doing the things that bring them joy with the people they care about most. You guys are both family guys. I can imagine it can be hard to balance the startup world and everything you have going on and the stress that may bring with your life at home and doing the things that do bring you joy. So maybe starting with you, Isaiah, what does living that well-rounded life look like for you, and how are you able to set the boundaries to be able to go home and be present and not take your work with you?
I am I over plan things. So I am the kind of person that just has everything in my schedule of what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it. And I'm just intentional with the time that I carve out. We have ongoing, weekend traditions. I make breakfast every Sunday so my kids can come over, whenever they want every Sunday. And, I'll do a big old thing. But making progress, time for projects, making time for dates and travel, and just continuing to have a shared lived experience is the way that that we can find it. But if there are, a set of folks in my life that I am most thankful for their relentless patience is definitely my children. My kids are 20, 18 and 16. And the patience that they have had and the support and the love that they give me is like my rocket fuel.
I love that. Vince, anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I've got a saint of a wife, Diana. She's fantastic. And I've got 4 young kids. So I have 8, 5, 2, and 6 months.
Wow.
And as well, so I'm a baseball coach, I'm a soccer coach. And one thing that's family is number one to me. Always has been, always will be. And being there for the kids, specifically being there for my wife, is important. So I have a hard stop at the end of the day. And then in that blast through when the practices are done and the kids are in bed. And then a lot of times I have to pick it up again and work late. But work never stops. So
there's always something to do.
And so there's always something to do. So unless I'm a planner, I'm less of a planner than Isaiah, but I give it a hard stop. Sometimes we have to blow through it, but then it's a very specific stop after that. And we go, and I just want to make sure that my kids don't even know I'm working, they're young, that all they know is fun dad. And that's what I want to be, and if we do that and we can have a successful business, I think that's the American dream for me. Just, be there for your kids, build something of impact, have success, and for a lot of not only yourself, but others. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely my dream. All right, guys. So what ask, challenge, or partying advice would you give to everyone listening before?
Did you say partying?
Partying advice? Sure. I think I did slur my words a little bit there, but partying advice. Hell, there's always a good time for that. But yeah, anything you'd like to share before we wrap up and I ask you where people can find you online, socials, things like that.
So this isn't going to be released soon, right? This is going to be released in a few weeks.
Yeah, probably looking at a month and a half out.
Okay, because we have some promotion stuff, and I'm just trying to think about timing. What do we want to promote? I think that
promote the application. Just promote.
Yeah. I'm thinking about what I want to say, and I hope you cut this out, TJ. But because I wasn't good with the off the cuff thing. But
we totally can cut it. Yeah.
What we want people to do is realize that they don't have to go into the unknown anymore. They can have a literally the largest private security team in the world can now be in somebody's pocket wherever they go, and we can let you know in advance. And so just there's no need to go into the unknown anymore uninformed. And I think that as people are thinking about their spring and summer and fall travel plans now until the future, we want people to think about Ozzi and how they can have a more fulfilling experience and create lasting memories forever.
Love it.
And we just want to be completely, we run in the background. Like we want you to go have your experience, do your thing, enjoy your time off. But
I mean, that's the beauty of the product, right? Is that it enables you to not worry so much because you do have something that's looking out 24/7.
Yeah. Early entrance into the safety space went the other direction. And we believed for a long time that they missed the mark. Like they're built around, it's built around fear. It's built around, and that's novel at first, but like listening to a police scanner all day, you can get a lot of information, but it doesn't often pertain to you. We want to be pinpoint accurate with this information is for you today, now. And if you're listening to that police scanner all day, it's pretty damn depressing. And that's not what we're looking for. We really want you to go out there, have it, and we're trying to do it. We're bringing together, like, the information that we're providing was quite literally only available to Fortune 500 and ultimately really Fortune 100 companies and governments. And we have been able to essentially Grubhub this together for the everyday person. Like, instead of finding a restaurant, you bring it with them bringing you the entree. Like you're finding the city and we're bringing you the safety. And that's what we're trying to do, and make it as simple and easy as possible, and have you set it and forget it. That's it.
Awesome. Available in all app stores. People can find you guys easily.
Yes. You can find us Ozzi, Ozzi, on Apple and Android app stores, Google Play. We're also available on our website, ozzi.app, or the social media channels, basically on every one of them, at Ozzi app.
Awesome. Well, we will include that in the show notes for everyone listening. And just want to thank you both for joining me today. This has been value packed. I know I'm going to be downloading Ozzi and using it on my upcoming travels. Going to be going to the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, got some other,
and give us
overseas
feedback.
adventures.
Like, if there's something you see that's missing or needs improvement, we are again, brutal honesty, and let's move forward. Like we know that we will get better and better over time, and we've got an awesome offering right now, but we know it's going to be even better the more time goes on, the more user feedback we have. So bring it on. We love it.
Awesome. What's the best way for people to give that feedback to you guys? Do you have a way of doing that on the website? Should people reach out to you directly?
Isaiah's mobile number is 555. Just kidding.
I mean, you can contact us through the website, through a contact form. I'm available at isaiah@ozzi.app, and you can send it directly to me. And I personally go through, I do the technical writing, and I work with the developers, and we implement, and we kick it back and forth, and we get feedback on anything that got pulled out. Like we helped a traveler just a couple weeks ago in Budapest. She gave us a recommendation to make the app a little bit better, like about 4 weeks ago. And then 2 weeks ago, we delivered it. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I used this in Budapest and it was so amazing. Thank you so much." It was like, we love those experiences, and we can only do that when we get feedback. So any way that you want to reach out to us through socials or email or website, it's perfect.
All right, world. Well, challenge accepted. Go use the app and tear it apart and give these guys some brutal, honest feedback.
Travel safely.
Thanks, TJ.
Yeah. Thank you again, guys. Appreciate it. To all of our Adventurous listeners, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share this on social media or with someone you know will get some value from it. Leaving a review goes a long way in helping people find the show, and I personally appreciate reading them when they come in. So please go drop one if you have the time. We'll see you all next week, and remember, whether we're talking about business or the things that bring us joy outside of work, life is meant for exploring. So go out there and live it one adventure at a time.